Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. So, welcome back to the theater stage, a stage which was truly an honor today to moderate the whole day. And it was an amazing experience, and hopefully not only for me, but all for you as well, not just the Cloud Summit, not just the theater stage, but the entire Cloud Summit. So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. What a great honor. So, to the last session of the theater stage. We are staying in the travel industry, but a travel industry which is from a perspective which we look at it from the disruptor's point of view. We introduce you now to a format which is very dear to my heart because 4 years ago we started that with colleagues of mine here in Google Zurich, where we brought founders together to talk about challenges they want to tackle and how to use technology to disrupt entire industry out there in the world. That format, we started 4 years ago with 12 people and 12 guests, to be honest, and it has scaled now across 15 countries around the globe with more than 1,200 followers here in Switzerland alone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Founder's Story. So once again, for those who are joining the stage here for the first time, my name is Hans, and this time it's the session I also have the honor to lead through. Again, we want to start off saying thank you on behalf of the Founder Story team to all our partners. For entrepreneurs, startups here in the Swiss ecosystem, they wouldn't have the environment today without all the partners here you see on the slides. Because as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes all these great heroes here to create an ecosystem for founders and startups out there. But we also want to say a huge thank you. So maybe let's turn this around. Who of you are here for the first time at the Founder Story episode? Nice. OK. So you obviously probably don't know the slide yet, but behind the Founder Story, there's a huge follower community. And while we, in a minute, invite founders here on stage and talk about how they use technology to disrupt entire industries, there's a huge following fan base out there. And the discussion never just ends here on stage, but continues later, maybe hopefully in the networking part, but as well as online. So we invite you to do the same. And when you do so, you are invited to use the hashtag #TheFounderStoryGCP so we can participate in the conversation as well. Share us your feedback and your opinion, because it's not only the ones on stage which matters. Last but not least, but the biggest of all thank you, we want to give it out to all the founders. Because for those of you who are entrepreneurs probably understand that, but it takes huge vulnerability and courage to bring some of the blood, sweat, and tears moments while you're creating your own business and talk about the pitfalls and things which haven't gone right, and then talk about it publicly on such a huge stage. It's a big leap. So thank you very much at this stage to all the founders. So, in today's topic, as promised before, we stay in the travel industry, but we go from airlines to the car mobility industry. And specifically, we want to look at it from an angle which is shifting nowadays, because it shifts from owning to accessing, and we want to understand how tech is redefining this industry. Let's take a half a step back. Where are we today? We are in a shared economy. Whether you order your food on Uber Eats and you have a wide selection of the restaurants, or next time you travel and you don't want to buy a beachfront house on your own expense, you just go on Airbnb. So we as consumers, we are now used to that services, and we more and more question every industry, what's the idea of owning something, and why can we not just access it? And the same goes for the car mobility industry. And if we look at the current projections, that industry is growing fast. And naturally, we see a huge disruption, if not already happening, at least coming up. Hands up here, however, in the audience, who of you still owns a car? And at the same time, who of you is using on a frequent basis car sharing mobility solutions? All right, interesting. So we are about at the 50-50 tipping point, and I want to learn later from our panelists where they see the future going. As promising as this trend and trajectory is showing us, though, latest challenges and no growth in any industry comes without hurdles. Big car manufacturing, who also spotted that trend, are now pulling out. Profitability in that industry is being questioned as well. And that later gives us as well as a perspective from the panelists that it's not a smooth ride ahead. As I said before, ladies and gentlemen, this is a discussion we shall not only have with the people here on stage, but we want to invite you all to participate, because especially when we have a heated debate or we dive into something, there's a question popping up and you want to just jump in and ask of people. Logistically, it's going to be a little bit difficult, so we invite you to scan the QR code, which leads you to a Mentimeter, where you can then post your questions. Chances are, because we have so many smart, like-minded people in the room today, is that someone has already asked a question, so you can just simply upvote it, so that in the end, we have the chance to pick the top questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, shall we kick off the founder story? For my first guest, it's a very great story I love to share, but she will tell us that later herself. So, for the first panelist, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage co-founder and chief of growth of UrbanConnect, Judith Häberli. Welcome, Judith.
Hi.
The founder story and at Google Cloud Summit. So, we go to the next founder. Definitely a serial founder, so when he founded Carify, it definitely wasn't the first company he emerged to, but definitely a lot of learnings if you have already gone through the startup journey once successfully, and to then venture into another industry and see what we can do in the car sharing and short rental, specifically mobility solutions. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage co-founder of Carify, Raffael Fiechter. Now, let's put it a little bit to the test. When you hear car sharing mobility, and I think this is owed to the huge media presence they've had recently and also in the past, shout out any company you haven't heard but think of. And I mentioned that before, because you have the headphones, you can shout as much as loud as you want. You won't disturb your neighbor. Let me help you. It starts with car. It's a company called Carvolution. Yet again, here to disrupt the car short-term rental industry, giving more power back to the users and back to the drivers. So ladies and gentlemen, please join us on stage, Jan Hinrichs. Welcome.
Right.
So once again, welcome Judith, Raffael, and Jan. So you're all leaders of startups which are there to disrupt the mobility industry. Having said that, what was your means of transportation to get here today, Judith?
I came by public transport.
I
wish I came by bike, but it was raining, so.
It's quite a cloudy day, yeah. I think it's a better choice to come by bike. And what about you, Raffael?
It's in the city, so train.
You took the train as well, yes? And what about you?
I came with my Italian Vespa, put my raincoat on, and drove through the rain, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so you stood the test of weather, and despite the rain, you still swing yourself in the Vespa. And it's love to see that. It gives us already the first hint. Just because car sharing is an evolving trend, it's not the only means of transportation. So maybe a little bit more on the serious note, can you tell us your position and your title, and more specifically what your company does. Judith.
Yeah, so I'm Judith Häberli. I'm one of the founders, and I'm responsible for growth at UrbanConnect. We do B2B mobility, so we work with companies such as Google, but also 70 others here in Switzerland, and we solve their employee mobility challenges. This could be commuter traffic, but also business traffic or business travel.
Yes, a service I personally love to use a lot, but we get to that later. Raffael, tell us who you are and what Carify is doing.
Yeah, my name is Raffael Fiechter. I'm the co-founder of Carify. We're the biggest car subscription platform of Switzerland. So we work together with 500 dealerships and enable car subscriptions to private people and to companies. And my part in the game is to take care of the dealer side, so of the supply side, and also of the whole B2B customer part.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And to stay on that note, Jan, we kind of went a little bit to the future already with the title. So
Yeah, that's true.
would you mind?
So I will start as CEO of Carvolution next week. So really pleased to be here already. And also in that, like, I think later we have a bit of how do startups evolve, right? And from founders, some point in time you bring in different talent, and that's probably why I'm here. And what Carvolution does is also car subscription, short term, also longer term, and probably comparing it a bit with what Rafa and the team is doing, while they work with the car dealers and basically operate a layer on top. What Carvolution is doing is basically operating the fleet end to end. And there's, I think, both models that can work. I think that's the main difference. So all the cars that we operate, and also from a technology perspective, once we get to it, right, we have that probably one of the largest fleets connected to the Carvolution systems. And I think that's part of the future, hopefully.
All right. So when we talk about the trends you spotted and the reason why you joined a company or founded your company, I want to do it from a little bit of a specific angle, which is let's go back to the early days of when the company started. And you all have submitted us pictures and photos where we knew no context whatsoever about. But as we heard many times today, a photo or a picture speaks 1,000 words. So will you tell us what we see on this picture and what you want to tell us about the early days of the founding story?
Should I say? Okay, so you see something I'm not super proud of, but when we started UrbanConnect, we actually wanted to solve the last mile problem in cities. That's also why we are called UrbanConnect, although we now work in the rural areas as well. What we thought is it doesn't make sense that everyone drives in the morning in a car into the city of Zurich at the time and then out in the evening. My co-founder was working at Credit Suisse. 12 of the floors at Uetlihof were reserved for parking. We just thought that doesn't make sense, and there should be a supplier like UrbanConnect providing e-bike sharing to companies. We then kind of wrote to 400, like it was I was still a student, so it was summer break, and I wrote to about 400 companies, including Urs Hölzle. I was not aware who he was. I thought he was responsible for CSR at Google. So
anybody here knows who Urs Hölzle is?
Yeah, so I wrote to him.
People nodding their heads. We will lift the hood later a little bit more.
Yeah, it's quite a funny story in the context of being here at Google. So I wasn't aware who I was writing to, so I'm not super brave. I just was naive. I wrote to him. We won Google as a client quickly after for the bike sharing. And then the first few years, we grew every year with Google because Google was growing, but we didn't have a software. It was like with numbers, keys at the bike. And then at one point, Google approached us in 2017, 18. They said, like, look, we like you guys, but you have to get smarter. And that's the moment where we first developed our software. We didn't have money for test phones even, so this one was from Ricardo. That's why it was broken. This is how the app looked like. Maybe some of you use it nowadays. It's quite a bit better now. But that's how reality was. Like, it was a broken app because we had to have Android phones. I had a better phone myself, but it was an iPhone. But for Google, we had to test on Android, of course. So I had this Ricardo phone. The app continued to crash. It was someone still at at Google in 2017-18 testing our services. I'm glad you weren't. So it was really bad. It was as bad as the picture looks. But you stuck with us. You gave us feedback. We sat with Google every 3 weeks, I think, at the time with the facility, with the Ruse team. They gave us feedback on what they need from a company perspective, and I think that really helped because that, like, our very first MVP was built around what a company needs and what the employees actually need. So it's not a B2C sharing product; it's really focused on B2B players.
Yeah, and when we first started talking about a couple of months back, I didn't even know that Google was your first customer, and I think that was a really, really special bond. And yeah, what a wonderful story. And again, for those people who are now Googling who's Urs Hölzle, Urs Hölzle was employee number 8. And I think you can tell by the size of what Google is today, it's a very, very special position to be in. He happens to be Swiss, but that's a good story of sometimes courage is a great door opener to reach out. Raffael, we see a picture of obviously you in the photo, but another person.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're happy on that photo or if you're
concentrated. Probably. Maybe I took the early days a bit too literally. That's, I think, we call it day 1, might be day 3 or so, because we're usually forgetting to take pictures of moments. So probably I was like, let's just take a picture, and I was like coming that bad picture out. So this is Sergio, my co-founder, and I in. He has a house next to his parents that we could use as an office. After that, we had then in some. His father owns a construction company, so we could go into some construction container. But here, basically, we were trying to reach out. We kind of knew, okay, it's a big thing, car subscription in the US, in the UK. So we were like just analyzing, okay, what could swap over to Europe, mainland Europe, and we're like thinking, okay, that could be a thing. So we were sitting there and reaching out to insurance providers, like you knew, okay, we need to have dealerships, we need to have insurance providers. Yeah, that's like the first ingredients you need to put a car on the road. If you don't have a lot of capital. Sorry?
What year was that?
That was 2019. And the funny thing here, is so his mother was always coming in with some sandwiches and was like checking up on us, but was like bringing sandwiches. But you knew she actually wants to know if we're just hanging out here or if that's going to be like a serious kind of project. So that's why I like this this picture, because we evolved also a little bit since then. But what was interesting here, like the first emails went out to before we worked at Sherpney, so there we sold software to C-levels in banking and insurance, etc. So we sent to all of these C-levels that we knew in insurance, and we got invited, and like very quickly, we were not used to that. So super quickly we got invited, we got these meetings, and M&A teams were there as well, and we were like, what's going on here? That must be something. This car subscription market. It was a bit the hype phase also of that car subscription market, car sharing, everything was. So you were mentioning before, like the challenges now, but there it was top hot, right?
I love you said it's about day 1, day 3, like very, very early days.
Very early, yeah.
And you already start reaching out to big companies, pitching your. What was in that pitch? What did you say? Like, I guess a lot of things were still not existing as there is in Carify today. So what was your pitch?
Yeah, I mean, that we were used to do that already with the previous company. We said, hey, this is going to be the big thing. 40% of all cars are going to drive in that system. So what is your solution? We would like to have a meeting with you to be our insurance provider. So that was like, it was like very short, but usually short ones.
But I guess there was no software, no prototype.
No, there was nothing. Like,
just a business idea, and you pitched it.
No, we had Wix page was our software for 1 year, and Sergio was the Dev King Sergio developing the Wix page. Yes.
Wow, what a wonderful way. And I guess obviously with your background as a serial entrepreneur, you already know maybe to not get stuck in the prototyping phase for too long, but actually go out there, test the market. We hear this a lot from founders, right? Experienced founders especially, who say don't get too stuck in building the prototype first, make it perfect, and then go out there. But just test the market first to see the readiness of customers, right, and partners in that matter. So Carvolution.
Yeah. So basically, the picture that you see on the screen, that's probably 2 years before Rafa and Sergio started. That's our entire fleet at that point in time in our headquarters in the center of Switzerland. And as you said, Hans, right? Like rather than thinking it through a lot, it was about, and that was before subscription hype, before sharing hype, and it was all about the idea that at that point in time, Lea, one of the founders, she had, okay, is there a market for people that rather than buying a car, do they want to rent a car for longer periods? And so how do you get that? You need all the digital tools and so on to find customers, but at the end you need the cars as well. So the entire fleet, to get that fleet, we had to buy the cars because there was no bank that said, okay, like we're going to finance the cars, asset-backed securities, right, far away. So yeah, the first cars were bought, and then the market was tested by launching campaigns, digital campaigns, and trying to find customers that would like the model, right? And the model basically is, it's convenient, it's flexible, and it's if you look at total cost of ownership, it's much better than your leasing or buying a car that you've been used to. And we'll come to that, yeah. Then you get these cars on the road, and then you bring the next cars in. And I think this, while you scale, adapting at any step of your journey, that's a big thing.
Let's stay with you, Jan, for now, because the same picture, a couple years later, is what we see today. So you might continue the story then.
Yeah. So now I don't know how long that is ago, but like as of today, we operate thousands of cars across Switzerland, many thousand cars, and obviously you get a lot of cars in that you've just bought, then you prepare them so they can actually get out to the customers. Some actually come to our headquarters, actually want to pick the car up, because this is a very emotional, physical product, right? A car is still something that you want to get a feel about. So a lot of customers actually come and want to pick it up. But in that transformation also now there's a lot of customers that actually buy it online or like subscribe online, and then they get it delivered to their door, right? So that's a change. And then once the subscription is over, the cars come back, you need to refurbish the cars, right? And also that we can talk about that later. Not only digital technology, but also like real technology, rims, for example. How do you actually repair rims in the best possible way in no time that is cost efficient, so that you see no scratches anymore? And that has evolved like crazy.
Yeah, I guess challenges you don't even think of when you first start.
No, because it's highly it's heavy logistics. I was in travel before, right? And I think you had airlines before. I think like airlines and what we do is similar, because you have these assets, either huge, large planes or a lot of cars, versus a digital product that you can sell like without any boundaries. Here you have to manage all the logistics behind it, right? And that's the beauty as well.
Yeah. Raffael, did you travel to the party, pivoted to the party industry, or
yes,
what
exactly.
do we see here?
Exactly. What do we see here? So yeah, I focused on the team because I think that's this was kind of so this is in Portugal. We rented the boat. We did like a retreat last year. End of last year.
How big was your team at this stage?
We're about 30 people, but we're trying trying to grow the fleet, not the employee size. Always find it interesting when people define themselves or companies by the amount of employees, especially now with a lot of automation that you can do. So we're not trying to grow there, but there. But what was nice here is like we decided in 2023 to go break even. We still burned about 100K per month or a bit more even. And then we're like looking at the market and we're like, okay, we don't want to do additional funding, so we want to break even soon. And then in summer, we actually did break even then on monthly basis. And then end of 2024 or mid 2024, we already saw, okay, we're going to be the full year break even. And so that was actually kind of the payback for the team also, because at the same time we invested into full-time employees. Before we had interns. We had a lot of interns from HSG, from all kinds of universities that needed an internship. We got them all in. So that's why this is like dear to us and to a lot of people. Like most people that are still in the team now, they joined 2023. We said, okay, that's the goal. It's not a beautiful, nice vision. It's money, but we need to get money. Otherwise, we need to get funding. Funding difficult, hence no.
I'd like to stay on the topic of profitability and break even a little bit. For those not familiar in the entrepreneurial or startup ecosystem, there was a time when fundraising was as easy as pitching it or writing it down on the napkin, and you would get hundreds of millions of dollars from investors for your AI startup. Right? There were those days, but time has changed. And so, what led you to focus on profitability and break even, and not follow the, let's say, classic startup journey to go heavily on funding and find a lot of investors to go even further?
Well, it depends on the industry. If you look at AI right now, I think you scream it out. There is big checks being signed right now. Well, I think in the end we saw, okay, well, how long is it lasting? It's still going to last. We did also, like, we profited of that. We made a nice financing round, didn't get diluted too much in 2021. We did that by ourselves. We have private investors. We don't have VCs or so in. But we also knew, okay, that way of fundraising is going to be difficult at the same level that we had the valuation then in 2021, because just the market has changed so much.
Yep.
In 2023, everybody was talking about profitability. So we were like, yeah, well, actually the sense of a business is to make money, is not to burn some investors' money and then just to, or, you know, like when you see, in certain cases that might also make sense, but in ours it didn't make any sense. Yeah. So.
And how did it affect your team and company culture? Because now you obviously chose that picture purposefully, right? And I mean, putting on a break a little bit on the spendings and stuff might, be a slowdown also on team culture. How did it affect your team and
Actually,
company?
quite positively, because I think we made it quite transparent. But yeah, we didn't do like a retreat 2023. Like we didn't do. We said, like, really we measure. We have every Tuesday we have like kind of a town hall where we go through the KPIs and whatever. 1 hour, everybody is there. Like every intern, everything, everybody's there. And we put, okay, that's the numbers. We now went down again. We went down again on the burn rate, down. It was a month we went up again. Okay, what went wrong? So down. And that kind of like, suddenly you had like the people taking that as their mission and saying, hey, I might know a way how we can reduce service costs. I might know a way how we can reduce that and that. Because it's, as Jan said, our business is highly operational. And before we had in software business at Germany, you had beautiful margins. You could make so many mistakes that now are not kind of allowed anymore, because the margins are thin. But that was the nice thing. So like the mental shift of the people. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So
and probably before we listen to, like, it's not just equity financing, right? In our, like, at least in our case, right? One is the equity that you need to raise, and you've mentioned. Like, we now have a 300 million debt facility, because if you want to buy thousands of cars, that's huge amounts of money. And that means that you, as this tiny little startup, are talking to corporate banks that have governance processes that are endless, and you need to adapt to that, right? So you need to build infrastructure that is tailored to these players, while at the same time you're hyperscaling, right? So as you said, and also from a company culture, right? You're still in that startup groove mode, but you're talking to partners that expect totally different level of, let's say, professional way of dealing with you. And finding that balance, I think, is also like a balance that needs to be done.
absolutely, very, very difficult journey. Now, we don't want to miss the last photo here. So ladies and gentlemen, for those who haven't found it yet on Google, this is Urs Hölzle, by the way. So Judith, what do we see here?
I mean, it was just a nice full circle moment. Last year I was at the energy conference in Zurich and he showed up. And I was like, I think it's him. And then I approached him and he remembered the email, which was quite crazy after, I don't know, almost 10 years. So it was just a very nice full circle moment. And the truth is, I do believe that if they're, like, even if you work in a corporate, like, you have massive impact on startups by forwarding an email. In his case, it was literally forwarding an email that made it work for us to launch the first fleet, etc. It was very nice to say thank you to him. But I think the other topic's more interesting, the fundraising. And I honestly would rather show a picture of our party when we get profitable. We're on a. We also now have that goal now over the next 6 months to reach. And I actually believe it changes the. I was worried about the team culture, but I think the focus that it brings, and also I think people want to be in a profitable business. They don't want to. I mean, maybe the certain types like it,
yeah.
But I do like the type of people who want to work in a profitable company and say, like, we do generate value to our customers, and we can pay ourselves fair salaries, and we can give our investors a profit. I think it's actually, in our case, I feel like it changed the company for the better. And I'm more excited to work on that solution than on raising a next round, impressing investors with future returns. I'd rather have them have real numbers now. Yeah, but it's probably a matter of type and character.
I see also a shift in DNA on how to run a startup. Again, you know, the golden eras of fundraising, right? Like, it's a little bit more mature way to see it now, to really make sure that the company is on a solid state. I'd love to pivot a little bit to the topic of trends and challenges we see in all of your industries. But for those who have noticed, we do have an empty chair, and this is not by coincidence or by accident, because as part of the Founder Story tradition, we always try to seek out someone in the Google ecosystem internally who have something to add on this conversation. I can tell you it's not Urs Hölzle. Sorry for that. But we found a Googler who goes by her title is Lead Partnership in the Automotive Industry, and what she exactly does in her day-to-day job, where we shall find out now in a second. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for my colleague, Dorothee Niebuhr. Thank you very much. Hi, Dorothee. So before we start kicking off, I play a quick intro, because for the people who don't know, Google is actually quite engaged in the car and automotive industry, and I think in this case the trailer plays a very good role to help explaining that. So, Dorothee, thank you for joining us at the panel today, all the way from Munich. What was your means of transportation to arrive here?
First of all, very excited to be here with all of you. Thanks for having me. I came by train.
By train also, public
A
transportation.
sustainable but also very quick way of getting here.
Love it very much. So, Lead Strategic Partnership Automotive. You sit at quite interesting tables, for that matter. Let's call it the C-suites, with some of the largest car manufacturers in the world, and helping them shape the vision of the future. So, from your perspective, what are the big trends now, what you see happening in the car and automotive industry?
So I think, the big trends can definitely be all put around one or two letters, actually, which is AI. Because the big question that is always in any of those rooms is, how can AI be leveraged to make our, like the partners, manufacturing and operations more efficient to actually attract new customer groups, to retain them. So really along the value chain, how can AI be used and made made really tangible for those car manufacturers, especially in a time where the speed of innovation has become so high that you can't afford to have different fragmented systems of software, different areas where you don't have transparency. So it is about kind of making the data useful and translating it into AI-optimized infrastructures, I would say.
So across the entire value chain, using that technology to self-improve internally. But then there are the disruptors in the car industries. And how are you, maybe is AI a tool set you play on? And if so, how?
Is it, sorry, is it?
Is AI a tool set you already are leveraging to disrupt? And if so, yes. Sorry, if so, how?
Wants to go first?
You go first.
Yeah, so we do too little for my taste. It's actually also an interesting thing, like you really need to kind of push it in, so to, you know, it's not enough to just give the tools. You really need to also show how tools work, etc. So where do we use it on a platform level? So we make the pricing of the cars for the dealers. So there we optimize on, okay, how many days are the cars already standing at the dealership, and then it gives them a different kind of compensation, that kind of stuff. Like we run a lot of data material in the background, and that this is being analyzed, and then we have our HubSpot mails are hooked. Gmail is obviously hooked there. We test out things. But I want to do a lot more, yeah. So I think there is, I mean, we have a heavily operational business. Emails are flowing in from customers, requests, and that's typical stuff that AI can do. Phone bots, all of these kind of things to make the customer journey better.
Yeah, the classic agent approach, how to tackle the volume, right?
But I think, like, at the end, and I haven't started, but I think in our business at least, like, let's face it, AI is more for employees to become more efficient rather than it's deeply integrated into products like you can think of. So I would say there's machine learning, there's algorithms. Is that already AI? I would say, it's a bit stretched. But if you then think about, and that's probably for us here in Switzerland more like still further away, but if you're in China or in San Francisco and you drive you are driven in your Waymo, right? Then it becomes, and that's then on the OEM side or whether it's the tech players, then it becomes real deep tech AI in assets. So I think that's the bandwidth that I would say is out there. And I think we're moving through that stages to go from one to the other, depending a bit on where you play in that industry. But as one of the biggest fleet operators, yes, we are certainly interested in all these trends, how you can actually help people move safer, move faster, more efficient. Can you share? What can you do? Absolutely. But I would say, as of today, it's for employees to do their work much better than they used to. If you use the usual, whether it's a Gemini, whether it's a chat, and so on, I think that's most of the case, at least as I see it.
So it's really the story of David defeating Goliath with efficiency and empowerment of the force that,
Towards investors, you can always say we're using AI, but is it really AI?
And we hear this a lot in the entrepreneurial community, right? Write those 2 letters on your pitch deck, and it gets you the funding you want, right? But the true spirit of it and helping to really revolutionize is yet another leap. How does AI play a factor in UrbanConnect, Judith?
I think mostly also the way Jan just described, like we use it in our operations, like to be better as individual contributors. We also use it more and more for the optimization of bookings. So first of all, like we don't do car subscription where one person just gets a car and then you cannot optimize as much on the vehicle. In our case, a fleet of, let's say, 30 cars at Roche in Basel is placed there. And of course, if our system knows which like when, let's say, all 3 booking cars are free for November 3rd, we want the system to book the car that has currently the least kilometer, because we want to give it back with as little kilometer, or at least not over kilometer. We want to ideally know how far the user will travel. Therefore, we probably want to suggest a car that has a longer range. We tend to understand which user tends to take the car for an hour versus 3 days. So we also tend to optimize so that we, on the 3rd of November, have the highest occupation of the fleet as possible, and are able to earn the most money on the fleet. It's kind of like that kind of knowledge that we are, like we already use certain aspects of it. Also, not all cars, not in all cars we all get all the data we want. Tesla is really far ahead, so we can do more there. But in general, I think there is more optimization potential still in our company in terms of understanding or anticipating user behavior.
And I find it interesting because, some people maybe expect, that AI is everything you do, but your business model fundamentally is already the factor of disruption, right, of the incumbent industry. So I want to pass the question over to you, Dorothee. Or you want to chime in with a quick comment?
Yes, I was just thinking while you were speaking, Judith, that basically, right, when you start creating those agents that help you on the one side to look at vehicle usage patterns in your fleet, right? On the other side, this is internal enterprise data, right? And you can go on. And then on the other side, let's say, link it to public traffic, to events happening around you, right? And then you create those very powerful agents, which is, as of now, already, at least like within Google, right? We do it all the time. But once you create those agents, they can help you really to define those demand hotspots and to see like where it goes. And this is, in the end, right? It's a mix of the tools that have that are AI, purely AI, and how you kind of link them to your business model, how you kind of take the workflow and put it in your kind of everyday work. And this way, you can also kind of optimize, right? Because sometimes it might be such a high expectation of saying all we do in our everyday life has to be AI, AI-based. I think it's really a matter of using the tools for yourself so that you can make the best case of it. And in the end, what I find very important is actually to exchange a lot, to exchange on how do you use tool X, Y, or Z in your everyday pattern to make your business model a little bit even kind of more optimized, right? Because it should be like, what's the end goal? Is it to create efficiencies, to save on costs, on timing, etc., right? But as of now, what I find is very helpful is creating those agents that can help you with those processes in your everyday life.
Exactly.
So now that we talked about opportunities in each industry and companies, I want to flip the side a little bit and look at about the challenges in a quick round of answers. Dorothee, maybe from your perspective, with the partners you talk about, maybe not to name names, but you have a very industrial perspective, what happens in the car industry. What are the challenges being mostly seen there now on a holistic level?
I think, and this was touched upon earlier while I was not yet on stage, but I think it's the way of iterating quickly. So I was also before in the automotive industry. I think a few have industrial experiences, right? And innovation comes, but it comes at a different speed than when we look at technology, right? Like now when I look at Google, basically the tester space is huge, right, by now. But anyway, it started always with that quick iterations, and then you test something, and you might also take it out of the market again. But this is a way, and I think a mindset also, that is right now, I think, working on the one side, but on the other side, you have to become more quickly to adapt to those speed, to this huge speed that is on the happening on the technology and AI side.
So the speed of innovation can be an opportunity, but is also a challenge for especially larger car manufacturers.
Definitely, and at least I think it's about risk-taking. You have to take risks. It might go well, it might fail.
So shifting gears with one word or one sentence, you are the disruptors. But what do you think is going to be disrupting you in the future in one word or one sentence, Jan?
So, I would say there's two things. Car evolution has started, and the biggest challenge from start was category building, right? It wasn't existing, so how do you actually let people know that your service is there? That's the one side. On the challenges going forward, And I think that's huge, and that's probably, I would call it regulatory versus innovation race, right? And that's actually a global thing, right? And I'm pleased to see how Switzerland in some areas is moving ahead. I'm not super excited about some things that happen in Europe, whether it's on AI, whether it's on other stuff, where actually regulation is prioritized over innovation. And I think that's one of the big things that, at least I see for all of us as founders, as corporates, if we want to grow, if we want to be relevant in the future, let's find a good balance on what to regulate and how to open up for innovation to let things happen as we go and adapt, right? I think that's one of the things I'd like to see.
So regulation would be the one word, one answer perspective, but thank you for enlightening it. Raffael, from your perspective.
Yeah, so you said, so what is going to replace you in the end? I think that's a very interesting one. So I think it ties into the regulation that where we're far ahead is we're in Switzerland now far ahead of autonomous driving, robotaxi. Certain regulations there are really, really cool. It's interesting actually that there we're very far ahead, yet we have 26 different cantonal registration processes for a simple car registration. So very far ahead, not very far ahead. But I do believe that's actually going to be a very, very interesting one. As we have the model now, I think it will kind of make us disrupted. It will take our space away, but we will find until then definitely the place where we can add additional value also to that game, because that's still a couple of years away, but it's going to be super exciting.
Slow adaptation, that would be the perspective. I'm going to give it one more shot with my one sentence, one word.
One word, I'm sorry, you wanted one word, sorry. Yeah.
So slow adaptation for you, Raffael. What about for you, Judith?
In mobility, I would say one word is China. I mean,
well, to be fair,
I'm happy to share more words, but
yes.
okay, yeah. So, I mean, now, if I can elaborate a little bit, we have now the earpods that can translate real time. We won't have that in Europe. I think the same is happening in mobility. We have self-driving cars in other parts of the world. We won't have them here for a while. And I think I'm not so worried about our business. I'm a bit more worried about Europe, I think.
Yep.
Good point.
So, geopolitical development, I mean, to make it a little bit
in combination with regulation
yes.
and with a bit of too much comfort, a little bit of entitlement. I do think we have to kind of get a bit of fire under our thumbs and not just think for the, I don't know, until the next holidays or the next paycheck. We're very comfortable right now, and I think that's what worries me most, more than the businesses.
And thus, we are back to the speed of innovation.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I see our event crew giving me the sign. Nevertheless, I know if some of you have submitted questions and we don't want to leave this out, let's have a quick look if there's some questions submitted. And also at the same time, anyone in the audience who wants to raise a hand. As always, we have a lot of questions. First of all, I want to throw it into the audience. Anyone who wants to grab the mic? No? Introverted ones, huh? So let's pick the top most upvoted question. How will the car industry look like in 20 years? I'll leave it open for you to answer.
So I would say, how do the roads look like? I'm pretty sure in 20 years we will see autonomous vehicles, hopefully also in Europe, after this discussion. But still, I think we are not that far away. But in the end, as mentioned here, right, some regulatory challenges, some might be on the technological level, but I think pretty much it's going to be a shared kind of moving around, at least in the urban space.
In 20 years, what do you see?
I think we had that 50-50 at the beginning when you started the car. I think it will be somehow 50-50. 50% will be similar to what we see, but better. And 50% hopefully is already then a bit disruptive. But as we know, right, everything needs a bit more time than we usually thought. And I think that's going to happen in that space as well. Yeah,
definitely autonomous. Autonomous will be very big by then. So, and I'm looking very much forward to it. Imagine you can send the car to your grandmother and the car goes and picks her up. Isn't that great?
Love it.
You know, like now,
Love it.
Yeah, it would be great.
I think it will be similar. I also hope there will be some level of sustainability so that we don't, maybe we have somebody in the car going to where the grandma needs to be picked up so we don't have more, more traffic on the street. But yeah, more sustainable, more autonomous.
Great. Last question, that was the most upvoted question from the audience, and that addresses to the startups here. What do you think about the competitor sitting next to you?
Competitors?
What do you think about the competitors who sits next to you, the other two? All of you three, yeah.
Great looking guy. What should I
Great
say?
looking woman.
I've never met him. No, I think I'm super impressed with serial entrepreneurs because I often feel like we were just lucky somehow, and that's why we could grow. So I'm super impressed about anyone who can pull it off twice. So
Words of admiration, love it.
yeah.
Yeah, like I find it, find very, very sympathetic, and find great what she's doing with companies and building out whole ecosystems around the. When I was reading about it, it was like, damn, why didn't we go in there? So it's like,
Okay,
so it's always
a
good,
little bit of a competitive
You
mindset.
have to answer twice.
I have to answer twice, true.
Yeah.
Well, Jan, we just met very recently, as he is very recently CEO of Car Revolution, but so far,
Yeah,
very good vibe. So, yeah.
And at the end, it's if you build a category, right, you have competition, but the key is not whether you're competing with your neighbor, it's more whether the category by itself grows, right? And helping the category grow is something that happens by the market because consumer trends shift, but you can also push it, right? You can push it together, you can actually, like, with the very same competitive product, you can grow that piece of the cake rather than trying to fight for the same thing. And I think that's where we are, and that's how we try to tackle it.
I love it. That would have been my addition if it wasn't already said, is that when we talk to each other individually, you all agreed that you will lift the benchmark of the industry, and this is what matters more rather than just being competing with each other. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining our discussion today. If you haven't had enough founder story, we invite you to head over to one of our great partners, Swisspreneur, the largest entrepreneurial podcast here in Switzerland. And chances are, any great entrepreneurs, you'll find an episode on them. So is now from our three guests today. For all the startups out there, take a picture because Google Cloud has a dedicated startup program to help you get launched or get kicked off. And then last but not least, if you haven't had enough founder story, we will be back in December 4th, end of this year, back in our Google office. So for those who have never seen Google inside the four walls, we invite you to do so. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the founder story and also the Google Cloud Summit. But first, I would like to invite our panelists to take a quick selfie with the amazing audience today. And as this is also part of the founder's story tradition. So everyone put your hands up and
Okay. Sorry. Kid?
thank you very much. Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for our panelists here today. Judith Häberli, Raffael, Fiechter, Jan Hinrichs, and Dorothee Niebuhr. Thank you very much. So, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This was the Google Cloud Summit 2025. You have heard the bar is already open, AI infused, of course, and we invite you to bring all this conversation, your questions, to our panelists, to ourselves, to our Googlers, partners, friends you haven't met yet. Thank you very much on behalf of the entire Google Cloud team, and see you next year.